A World Series ad quoting Ronald Reagan just sparked a tariff war. What does a new 10% hike on Canada mean for your wallet? Kamala Harris says she's, quote, not done. Is that a real 2028 run or classic book tour buzz? While your airline mechanic and your barista are suddenly on TikTok, companies are turning to their own employees as influencers. Tulane University bans a high school, not an individual, but a high school from early decision over one student. Fair policy or strong arm move? And finally, a personal essay from me why Democrats are wasting their time demanding the release of the Epstein files. All that and more today on Filtered. Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today. It is a beautiful Sunday here. It is 10:40 a.m. live on Sunday, October 26th, when I'm recording this. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. I just played a fantastic 6 or 7 games of pickleball. I think I won 6 of them. I think I won all but one. I'm having a great day, feeling energized and ready to just dive right in to the top news stories with you. So let's jump into issue 1. Tariffs over a TV ad. Trump escalates against Canada. According to the Times, President Trump is slapping an additional 10% tariff on Canadian goods after Ontario aired an ad using Ronald Reagan's 1987 anti-tariff remarks. The ad will be pulled from the air on Monday. It did rearrange Reagan's words, but not really his message. Trump called it a fraud, suspended trade talks Thursday, and now says, I am increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they are paying now. He offered no details on which products. Talks had focused on easing U.S. duties that already hit Canadian steel and aluminum at 50%, softwood lumber at 10%, and some auto parts at 25%. Canada's trade minister, Dominic LeBlanc, said Ottawa is, quote, ready to build on the progress made in recent weeks. Top White House economist Kevin Hassett said frustration has built up over time. Industry warned of blowback. The president's threat is really to charge American taxpayers billions because of a benign World Series ad, said Flavio Volpe of Canada's Automotive Parts Manufacturing Association. Okay, what's the real message here? Once again, Donald Trump saw something on TV, which is the only way to reach him apparently, didn't like it, not because it was factually incorrect, but because it was true and it made him look stupid. And he decided to hold the entire U.S. economy and the entire Canadian economy hostage because his feelings got hurt. That makes sense if you're a petty tyrant, but not if you're the leader of what's supposed to be the greatest free market democracy in the world. Let's dig a little deeper here. Let me actually show you the ad in question, because if you just look at the reports, the headline quite often is, Trump said this, other people say that, maybe it's both, maybe they both have a point. Or you hear that the ad was edited selectively. Well, there's no such thing as an ad that isn't edited. So together, let's take a look at this ad, and you can be the judge whether you think this was an unfair ad for the Ontario province to run. So this is courtesy of the New York Times. They're showing the ad, and they're actually showing what the raw footage was of the president as well. So let me show you, indeed, the footage, and you can judge for yourself.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports.
Okay, so you heard the beginning of the ad, then you saw Reagan saying it himself. This is actual archives, not courtesy of the Canadian government, but from the Ronald Reagan Foundation. So they have no incentive to put out any disinformation here. So the beginning of the ad starts 100% with what Reagan actually said in a speech. Now, a little context. It is true that Reagan did sometimes put tariffs in place. He wasn't a 100% consistent free market libertarian, never, never, never have tariffs. But by and large, most of his rhetoric and most of his actions were, in fact, to reduce tariffs. He was seen as a free trader, keeping taxes down, keeping tariffs low, because most economists would tell you a tariff is a tax. So when Ontario is making Reagan, using Reagan to make a point, it's not exactly like they're distorting some words and making him sound like a communist. It's consistent with everything the Reagan philosophy stood for. But you've seen the ad so far. You can judge for yourself. It's a 100% verbatim so far. Let's listen more.
It looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs.
So again, it's pulling an exact quote, the actual voiceover of what Reagan said, and putting it over what we call B-roll in the industry, video of images.
And sometimes for a short while it works.
Now, you may be hearing a slight echo. The reason for that is they are showing the audio from the ad and the audio from the raw footage of Reagan, and it's exactly the same thing.
But only for a short time.
So now it says next 4 separate sound bites are combined to explain what's wrong with tariffs. So this is where they combined it. I would argue, I don't think there's any journalist in the world who would argue that this is sort of unfair, because it's not fundamentally distorting the message. A little context here. Anytime you see a quote, it's out of context of something else. The issue is it out of context in a way that fundamentally distorts the person's main idea? If I say, I would be crazy to say I love communism because I hate communism, and you quoted me as saying I love communism, that would be quoting me selectively in such a way as to be misinterpreting what I'm saying, quoting me out of context to misinterpret and to distort the fundamental meaning. Any fair-minded person would agree with that. But if you're interviewing me and I go on and on and on and on saying I love free market capitalism, but then I also say, and I do love capital, or I do love communism too, and you want to quote just that, that's a fair quote. Now, for the record, I don't actually love communism, but I think you get my point. Let's watch more of this video. Again, if you can see the distortion in a way that's fundamentally perverting the idea of what Reagan was saying, you're smarter than I am. Let's listen some more to this footage right now.
That over the long run, such trade barriers.
So now you can see they skip to a different part of the actual speech. But he's giving reasons as to why he doesn't like tariffs.
Hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to...
So they went from the 50-second mark of Reagan's original presentation. Now they're at the 3-minute mark.
Retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growth.
Now they're pulling from the middle of it. So again, if this were a news story and they were presenting this as if he gave a speech that was 30 seconds long, you could quibble with it and say, okay, that's not completely accurate. But for an advertisement using actual words spoken by a president who had a long track record of giving a lot of speeches and policy statements against tariffs, there's fundamentally nothing misleading about this ad. And Trump is throwing a temper tantrum and is going to be harming millions of consumers, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of businesses on both sides of the border, all because he's upset that Canada has an ad that tells the truth?
Realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition.
So, again, those are actual words that Reagan spoke. The fact that they used it in a slightly different order has absolutely no impact on whether it was used truthfully or in a distorted way. So really what we're seeing here, again, it's not the first time we've seen this. What we're seeing from this administration again and again and again is a war against reality, a war against truth. Trump is punishing Canada not for lying, he's punishing them for saying the truth, and for saying the truth in a way that makes him look bad. In the same way we see, Justice Department officials and other government officials who said, yes, Joe Biden received more votes in 2020. Those people are punished not for lying, not for voter fraud, but for saying the truth. Well, the reason this is so significant is it's a part of an ongoing war against reality, against empiricism, against the very concept of modern thought, of the modern era, that facts matter, that reality is something that is objective. And it's really more like going back to medieval times and saying, well, I'm the king. If I say black is white and white is black, if you disagree with me, off with your head. It really does. Now, in Trump's defense, he hasn't cut off anyone's head yet. At least if you're not a Venezuelan or someone in the Caribbean he doesn't like. He's not doing that to U.S. citizens yet. But it makes you wonder, are we that far away from that? So again, if you're asking yourself, wow, I do business with Canada all the time. They buy my products, I buy their products. Now everything is skyrocketing in cost. What happened? This is it. It was this one ad. And the other context that gets lost in all this is we have a free trade agreement with Canada, North American Free Trade Agreement, which was signed in by a U.S. president. You know which president? Donald Trump in his first term. So this is yet another example of Trump making a promise to people, writing it down, signing it, taking that promise, throwing it in the garbage can, not for any violation by the other party, but just because I feel like it. Even that North American Free Trade Agreement needs a little extra context because it's exactly the same agreement we had with President Clinton, and that was in force for 25 years until Trump tore that up and then rewrote it almost identical and signed his name because he wanted his name on something. So it's increasingly bizarre times. Are we going to be able to survive a tariff on Canada? Yes. Are we going to be able to survive the idea that there is no such thing as factual truth anymore? That I'm a lot more skeptical of. When we have a president who says, here's someone making an argument. They have evidence, third-party evidence, facts behind them. But because I don't like it, because it sort of makes me look like a fool, I'm going to call them a liar. I'm going to convince my followers that they're lying, and I'm going to throw a temper tantrum and throw them under the bus. It's a truly, truly bizarre situation. I'm TJ Walker. I want to thank you for joining me today. We have a lot more to come, a lot more issues. We've got one issue at the end that does relate to this issue about the war on reality itself. More in a moment. Filtered is brought to you by the following. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. Thanks for listening. If you like today's episode, you'll love my online courses at MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Check them out now and level up your skills. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is signaling she may run for president again. In a BBC interview, when asked, she said, quote, "I am not done," and that a woman president could possibly be her. According to the Times, the comments came as she promotes a new book about her 107-day presidential campaign. Harris said she hasn't decided on 2028, brushed off early polls, and argued her 2024 warnings about an authoritarian Trump have come true, saying he, quote, weaponized the Department of Justice. She's taken a cautious approach to the current administration, even declining a California governor's run. Here's the context. Politicians often use book tours to test a message, stoke speculation, and sell books, sometimes before they jump in, sometimes instead of running. Harris is keeping the door open while building attention and leverage. As she put it, public service is, quote, in my bones. Okay, so what's the real message here? Kamala Harris is floating the idea that she might run for president again while on a book tour. Be skeptical. It's a great way of selling books. But if her poll numbers don't go up dramatically, I don't know why they would, she's not running for president. She is going to become richer and more famous being a celebrity. And on that, she's really good. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Okay, so I personally do not dislike former Vice President Kamala Harris, but I don't take seriously this idea that she's going to run for president again, because you had Donald Trump, who is, by most accounts, the most unpopular leader of a country, presidential candidate in history. His negatives are astronomically high. They were astronomically high in 2024. They were astronomically high in 2020 and 2016, and she still lost to him. And she lost with a good economy and a good track record. I just think it's going to be very, very hard to convince people she deserves another chance. Now, it is true, there's precedence for candidates running, not winning, and running again. Richard Nixon did it famously. That's probably the most direct analogy to her situation. Nixon was a vice president, ran in 1960, lost very narrowly to Richard Nixon, and 8 years later, in 1968, he ran and won. So it's not that it's impossible, but I think the dynamics are very, very different. Now, let's keep in mind, a lot of candidates and political figures write memoirs. It's a great way to cash in and make money. And it can help you politically if you do decide. But there's also the idea that if you make people think you're running, a lot more people will buy your book because they think this may be the next president of the United States. I need to know how they think. Elizabeth Warren had a book, This Fight is Our Fight, in 2017. And she road tested some messages for a presidential campaign. Ron DeSantis had a book, The Courage to Be Free, came out in 2023, that preceded his own launch for president. Mike Pence wrote a book, So Help Me God, where it sort of fueled more speculation he would run. Chris Christie, The Republican Rescue, was his book in 2021. So yeah, a lot of people do in fact write books about how, and then on the book tour talk about how they're going to run for president, but end up not doing it. And of course, Barack Obama, The Audacity of Hope, his book tour in 2006 really did help his presidential campaign in 2008. It's also true that Ronald Reagan ran for president 3 times before winning. The difference is he never got the nomination until 1980. So he wasn't the head of the ticket and leading it to a big defeat. Now, the defeat Kamala Harris suffered was not astronomical, but it was still more than a couple million votes. It wasn't one of these things like Hillary Clinton actually got 2 million more votes than Donald Trump, but she lost in the Electoral College. If anyone were going to be a nominee a second time, you could make a much stronger case for Hillary Clinton because she actually won so many more votes than Trump did in 2016. But for Kamala Harris to run again when she was given the nomination on a silver platter, let's face it, and then to lose by millions of votes against somebody who had the highest negative ratings in the history of American politics, I just don't know what the argument is for why the Democrats should go back to her. Now, you could go back in time and say, well, Adlai Stevenson lost in 52. He was the Democratic nominee again in 56. Didn't turn out too well, did it? I'm sure that she would love to be president. I don't know anyone who's been a senator or governor or member of Congress who doesn't secretly fantasize about being president. That's just a part of who you are. But I also think she's a sane person and a rational person. And as we get closer to 2028, if in fact we still have presidential elections in America, if in fact we are still a functioning democracy, if in fact the Democratic Party hasn't been outlawed as a terrorist organization, as has been hinted by the current administration, I think her name will start showing up on polls. And there's going to be about 3 or 4 names ahead of her. Now, she'll have high name ID, but I think at that point, if it's 2027 and democracy hasn't been shut down, you're going to see a number of other Democrats. And you already see that. You already see people like California Governor Gavin Newsom ahead. And if it's a year and a half before Election Day, and she's running 3 or 4 or 5 in the polls, and she's making tens of millions of dollars on the book tour and Netflix deals, supposedly, and corporate gigs and public speaking gigs where she's making $200,000. I think she and her team will say, wow, do we really want to give up this cushy life? Because being a really famous person in America today is a cushy life. There's so many ways you get treated like royalty. You get paid a couple $100,000 just for showing up and spouting off your opinions. That's what former vice presidents get if they're giving a speech. People give you millions of dollars for writing a book, even if you didn't write it, if you just lent your name to it. You get millions of dollars for giving your name for rights to get a documentary made about you on Netflix and Amazon. It's a pretty cushy gig. And when you're not actually in the arena, your enemies aren't attacking you. You're surrounded all day long by people who tell you they love you. You're great. You should be president. So I have a hard time imagining that she'll give that up for what will look like a very big long shot campaign. I also just don't know what the argument is to the Democratic voters that she deserves another chance. To her credit, she did in fact unify the Democratic Party last summer. And they rallied around her. They supported her. There was very little dissent. You didn't see constant sniping from other Democrats that, oh, she shouldn't have the nomination. They may have been thinking that, but you didn't hear Democrats constantly belittling her during the presidential campaign last year. She had a fair shot. And it just didn't work out. What do you think? Post your comments if you're watching this live. At Davey says, a woman will never be president in the United States. Too many misogynistic men. Maybe, but maybe not. I think never is a long time. Things change. I mean, I remember as recently as 2007, I heard a lot of people say America's never going to elect a black man with a funny, strange name with a guy with a name like Hussein as a part of his name. I mean, that was widespread popular belief. And yet the very next year, it happened. Now, it very well may be that the first woman president is a Republican. You know, it was the conservatives who made Maggie Thatcher Prime Minister of Great Britain. So sometimes it comes from opposite directions that you wouldn't normally think. Okay, other comments coming in. We all know how she got her job. Well, I think I know how she got her job. And I guess it begs the question of which job are you talking about? As vice president, she got the job in part because the number one constituency for Joe Biden in his campaign to get the nomination were black women. And it was seen as, okay, here's someone who's a serious person, United States Senator, been Attorney General, been a prosecuting attorney, someone who comes across as articulate, good looking. She would be a valuable asset to the party. So I think that's what you must be meaning, but you might mean something else. So feel free to share that. At Vermin says, Kamala couldn't win the primary this time. I think you're right. She didn't do well in the primary last time when she did run in 2020. She just was not a particularly good presidential candidate. Here's a phenomenon I have noticed in my 40 years of working with politics as a campaign consultant, communications expert. There are a lot of people in the world who look really good and sound good at the state level. And people imagine them at the national level. And then they run for national politics at the national level, and they just wilt under the lights. I don't think she wilted, but things just don't connect in the right way. And let me be bipartisan here. This certainly happened to Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle was seen as a bit of a wonder boy in the state of Indiana. Very young, rose to went to the United States House at a young age, was elected to the Senate in his 30s, was compared favorably to someone who just passed away last week, Robert Redford. He was compared to Redford, and as the candidate, the movie Robert Redford was in, he was seen as young, good-looking, and someone who has as fine an eye for political talent as Roger Ailes really thought that Dan Quayle would be great for Vice President George Bush to add to his ticket in 1988, and that's why he was put on. And then he got on the national stage, and it was a disaster the entire 4 years. Quayle then had his own presidential campaign. No one even paid attention. I don't think he ever did better than about 5th place. So there is this phenomenon where someone can be a superstar at the state level. And there's simply no serious person who would deny that Kamala Harris has been a superstar in the state of California. It hasn't translated on the national scene. So, hey, good luck to her for the book tour. It's selling very well. It's doing well. Is this going to change public perception and propel her to the nomination in 2028? I do not think that happens. Okay, Alan also writes, can we see or hear the Reagan footage? I just shared that earlier today. So this video will be on demand in audio format. So you can watch that and see that in great detail and analyze it yourself. You can also go directly to the New York Times, which is showing that on its front pages. I'm TJ Walker. We have a lot more fun stories coming up today on this Sunday. Back in a moment. Want to communicate like a pro? Go to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Millions have already transformed their speaking skills. Why not you? This show doesn't run on a lot of corporate sponsorships or big media backing. It runs on caffeine and your support. If you like what you're hearing and want to say thanks, you can buy me a coffee. Really. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/TJ Walker. It's quick, it's easy, and yes, it helps cover editing, hosting, and staying relatively ad-free for as long as possible. Buymeacoffee.com/TJ Walker. Your $3.95 makes a real difference. Want live coaching from me? Bonus episodes? Full course access? It's all waiting at tjwalker.com/members. Join now. We are back. Thanks so much for joining me. This is Filtered. I'm your host, TJ Walker. Those of you joining us live, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching on TikTok today, on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, we're on virtually every social media platform and every podcasting platform as well. So if you're watching us for the first time, welcome. This is the show where we look at top business news, technology, economic, and culture news of the day, and then filter it through the lens of communication skills and personal development skills, all with the goal of making you more successful in your career and your personal life. So thanks so much for joining me. If you have a question or comment, post on any format, whether you're watching this live or on demand. Deborah has joined us, Alan as well, and Vermin, asking if I can replay the footage of the Reagan ad from our first study. I can't do it now, but all of this will be on demand in just a few minutes after the show ends. So it'll be on all the platforms. So you may want to check it out there. Okay, let's dive right into issue 3. Starring in videos is everyone's job now. Companies aren't just hiring influencers anymore. They're turning employees into them. According to the Times, brands from Delta to Lego and DHL are asking frontline staff to appear on TikTok and Instagram to humanize the brand and cut cost. Delta's Life at Delta shows mechanics and crews at work. Lego designers walk fans through builds. Portillo's is launching an international or an internal influencer at every location. DHL even urges couriers to post hashtag yellow United clips, then boost the best ones. Why does it work? Employees are among the most trusted sources, says brand strategist Lachlan Williams. But authenticity is messy. Too much control, warns Chelsea Thompson O'Brien of VML, and the content becomes wallpaper. Too little, and posts can clash with strategy. Inside DHL, creator Balls Bailu says teams align on core messages like HR or sustainability. Then, quote, have the freedom to bring those stories to life in our own way. The risk is real. If employee stories don't match reality, audiences spot the dissonance fast. Okay, so what's the real message here? You may tell yourself, oh, I'm not an influencer. I don't like the camera. Guess what? Part of your job, no matter where you work, DHL, Burger King, may be making video to make your company look good. So you might as well embrace it. It may be the ticket for your own advancement. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. So yes, there are still influencers. They're going to get deals. There's always going to be some company that says, yes, I want to pay Kim Kardashian $1 million for a tweet or to wear my clothing. I don't think that's going away, but more and more companies are realizing their best spokespeople are their own employees who are working in the trenches every day, dealing with customers, because they're the ones who know customer success stories. And that's what makes it truly credible. Now, you may be thinking, I'm just working in an Amazon warehouse. I didn't sign up for this. I don't have to do that. You're right. You probably don't have to. But here's where I'm really advising you one-on-one. I want you to succeed. I can tell you right now, if you work for a big international corporation and you're caught saying nice things about how you personally helped a customer and it's consistent with what your company does and it goes viral and it gets attention, there's no possible way that won't help you in your career. It's going to make you more well-known. It's going to make you visible. I mean, one of the problems we have in our modern day society is that people who are already at the top and are just, wildly ambitious attention seekers, and okay, I'm a part of that. People at the top, they get all the goodies. They rise to the position of CEO. They're constantly in the spotlight, even when they screw up massively. Even when their stock price tanks, their visibility gives them so many more job offers, board opportunities, book deals. And that's when they're horrible and screw up. If you're an average worker somewhere, quite often you're working in the shadows, literally and figuratively. You don't have that visibility, and good deals, more opportunities aren't coming your way. One of the reasons I do a show like this every day is because, in fact, the visibility, even though I don't have millions of views every day, good things come to me. More people buy my books, online courses. People invite me to be on podcasts. People pay me to deliver webinars just because they've seen me here on social media. And it's not like I have millions of views or downloads, although I'm hoping in a few years to change that. You might not aspire to be a full-time influencer, but you should aspire to do well in your job, to advance in whatever organization you're in. So I urge you, if your company is encouraging people to make social media content, don't wait until a manager puts a gun to your head or tells you, you better do this or else. Do it yourself. Do it during a coffee break. Initiate. It could very well lead you to your next promotion. If nothing else, the next time there are layoffs, it might prevent you from being on the chopping block first. So that's why I want you to think about doing this. And I know it takes you out of your comfort zone. I know you probably don't think of yourself as an influencer or a media personality or a podcaster. Okay, all it is talking. If you've ever said one thing about something you're proud of at your job to a friend, a family member, a colleague, you could do the very same thing and make a video of it and share it. Now, you might want to share it with your PR department or your boss first. I'm hoping you have enough common sense to realize that you probably shouldn't make a comedy video about how you appear to be puking in the food before it goes into a wrapper and shipped off to your customer. I'm assuming you're smart enough to realize something like that could destroy your career, get you instantly fired. But there are other things where it's a gray area. Maybe you helped a customer, but it's something where someone could construe it as, oh, you violated their privacy, or you did something that's against our policies. Check first. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed success, but in general, if you talk about why you like working in a place or why you like helping people and fulfilling the basic mission of your organization, you're probably going to be on much stronger ground. Let's look at some more facts here. Nordstrom, Adobe, and Dell offer creator courses. Some employees get bonuses or perks. And for those of you who own your own company or you're in charge of marketing, encourage this. The problem a lot of company founders have is they think, I'm the only one who can speak on behalf of my company. And they're also so busy, they only make social media content once every 6 months. Empower your own employees to create content. You'll probably be better off. Again, Delta has Life at Delta features technicians and crews. Lego designers explain how they build things on TikTok, much more powerful than just a big ad agency showing slick video of people making TikToks. So this is an important opportunity. We've seen the means of production democratized. Does that mean everything's perfect and everyone's going to be a rich, famous TikTok star? No. But you might have your moment in the sun, and maybe it's just a moment, and that's okay. Your friends and family can enjoy it, but it might be something that could lead to a whole nother career, whether it's in social media or as a manager or head of sales, because people start looking at you in a different light. I'm TJ Walker, back in a moment. Filtered is brought to you by the following. Get the deeper takes I don't post anywhere else. Subscribe now at substack.com/@TJWalkerSuccess and stay in the loop. For years, people have asked how they could get one-on-one coaching from me inexpensively. Well, now you can. anytime, anywhere with the TJ Walker AI clone. It's like having me in your pocket, ready to help you prep for a speech, polish a pitch, or calm your nerves before a big meeting. You talk to it, it responds like I would, based on my real-world coaching of thousands of leaders and communicators. Check it out at tjwalker.ai. It's not just smart, it's personal. Want to support the show? Skip the ads and buy me a coffee. That's buymeacoffee.com/TJ Walker. We are back. Thanks for joining me. This is Filtered. Tulane University bans a high school from early decision. Tulane University has barred Colorado Academy from submitting early decision applications for 1 year after a student reneged on an early decision commitment. According to the Times, Tulane, where early decision fills a majority of seats, said the school, quote, failed to uphold the expectations of the early decision agreement, adding that a last-minute withdrawal without explanation unfairly impacts other applicants. Now, early decision is not legally binding. Students routinely back out over aid or personal changes. A veteran counselor called Tulane's move unheard of. Mark Salisbury of Tuition Fit said Tulane's limited offers rationale is misleading, and the ban looks like extortion. Critics argue early decision advantages wealthier families and locks students in before comparing aid. A new antitrust suit alleges dozens of colleges and application platforms collude to enforce early decision rules and inflate costs. And I should note, Tulane is not a defendant in that case. As plaintiff Jude Robinson put it, I had to give up the right to compare the cost of attendance at different schools. So what's the real message here? Tulane is playing hardball because it can get away with it. Big universities are now run like a cartel, and their only job is to extract more and more wealth from rich parents. They have become a luxury brand, pandering to the top 1%, and this whole early decision thing helps them get away with it. It should be abolished. Let's dig a little deeper here. I mean, this is one of these issues where at first blush, it seems reasonable. Oh, you love this one school. It's your number one choice. You're willing to commit. They want you. It seems like a good marriage, right? The problem is it really does disadvantage not just poor kids, but middle-class kids, frankly, more middle-class kids. If you're a really poor kid, it might not matter because if that is your top choice school, they're probably going to give you a full ride anyway, if it's a really good school. Where it does have a huge impact is lower middle class, and even upper middle class students. You have to make a decision that, hey, I do like this school. Maybe it is my number one school, but there's another 3 schools that I'd be almost as happy with. And if they're willing to give me a deal where I get the whole education for $20,000 a year, and my number one school wants $50,000 a year, I'd much rather do choice 2 or 3. You can't do that. You can't make that decision. And sure, these colleges make it easier than ever to get loan after loan after loan. But do you really want to start life as a 22-year-old or as a 24-year-old coming out of graduate school with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt if maybe a school that was just a tiny notch below in your own priority list would have been happy to have you and maybe even give you a full ride? For my kids, a lot of kids, if their parents have plenty, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's pocket change. But for middle class and lower middle class parents and kids, it can be devastating. So once again, we see another institution in society that is really geared heavily to the advantage of the incumbents who are already doing well. College is supposed to be about bringing new people and bringing more opportunity. First generation college kids. That's the American dream. That's in part what brought such dynamic growth to this country in the 1940s and 50s, people coming home from the war, first generation going to college, spending almost no money getting college degrees. Even when I was a kid, which I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have gone to college in the 40s or 50s, but when I was going to college in the early 80s, it was still relatively inexpensive. And if we had any kind of thing like an early decision, I wasn't even aware of it. But it's yet another system that can be gamed to the advantage of the wealthiest. Now, the wealthy also have advantage of all sorts of college consultants. And hey, it's a free society. There should be the ability to have college consultants who have an almost mathematical precision where they look at you, look at your college grades, look at your SAT or ACT scores, your extracurriculars, and they could do an amazing job of predicting, okay, here's the best college you can get into for early decision. And it's going to be better than any college you can get into if you do the regular process. And this very same college that will let you in through early decision won't let you in if you wait and apply regularly. So go ahead and, if that sounds confusing to you, it is. That's why people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on high-priced college consultants to help them come up with the best choice. And if you're thinking, well, does a lower middle class kid have that advantage, or a poor kid, or a middle class? No, their parents are not going to spend $10,000 on a college consultant to give them the exact, precise mathematical calculation on what is the best fit for them. And who cares about money? They're not going to do that. They have to take into consideration the money, and it's unfair. Now, the antitrust thing relates to the fact that colleges see, okay, you pledged early decision there and you broke it. Now you want to come to our college. Well, we're going to be a part of the cartel. We're not going to accept you because you said no to this other college, because we want people who accept us for early decision to honor that. So we're going to be essentially like a mob group, mob enforcement. That's why antitrust authorities are looking at that. I think it's time to break up this cartel, because higher education has, Scott Galloway speaks about this quite eloquently. He says they're no longer in the business of education. They are really just hedge funds that have a luxury brand that are selling diplomas. That's what they are. They're about elite. It's about, look at this purse I have. Look at this Louis Vuitton purse I have that costs $5,000. Doesn't that make me cool? I never use it or open it anywhere, but look at it on my shelf. Aren't I cool for having? I mean, that's what college educations have become to many people today. And Tulane, I think, deserves a real black mark. First of all, I didn't even know Tulane was hard to get into. Forgive me. Back in my day, that was most people's safety school. But apparently, they do have more applicants than they have slots, and feel the need to do this. It's a hard thing to quit, because if you say, I'm not going to participate in this, if you're a student, then you may ruin your chances of getting into your dream college. So this is a perfect example of why government needs to regulate this. And maybe it's time to say, knock it off, folks. Have one admissions process, let everyone apply, give them their price you're charging, and then let students and their families do a true apples to apples comparison of, okay, this school is giving me this package. It's going to cost me X amount of dollars per year to go to this school. This one's giving me Y package. It's going to cost me Y dollars a year to go to this school. Now I can make a fair comparison. Right now, the marketplace is completely rigged so that you don't really know what you're getting. And the only beneficiary is the university. It does not give an advantage to students and parents. It certainly doesn't give an advantage to kids and parents who aren't the top 1% or the top 5%. More in a moment. You're not going to want to miss this next commentary. Imagine having a communication coach who never sleeps. Meet your new secret weapon, the TJ Walker AI clone. Go to tjwalker.ai and start getting custom coaching 24/7. No scheduling, no hourly fees. I've trained presidents, prime ministers, and Fortune 500 CEOs. But the same exact communication I've delivered to world leaders is now available to you online, anytime at MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Whether you're speaking on camera, pitching a client, or handling a crisis, you need these tools. These aren't fluffy motivational videos. They're practical, battle-tested techniques to help you speak clearly, competently, and persuasively. Go to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com and take your communication to the next level. Got feedback or a question for me? I actually read them, and if you send one, I'll send you a free mini course as a thank you. Just head to tjwalker.com/feedback. Ever wish you could just ask me your question live? Now you can. Every week I go live with members only. On YouTube, it's called TJ Live. I review pitches, fix presentations, and answer your questions on the spot. It's interactive, personal, and hands-on. If you want real-time coaching in a small group setting, go to tjwalker.com/live and become a member. This isn't passive content. It's a two-way conversation. Welcome back. This is Filtered. I am your host, TJ Walker. Okay. I have a message for all the Democrats out there, all the liberal pundits screaming day after day, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files, like they're in a Wizard of Oz movie and it's going to make everything warm and cuddly. You're barking up the wrong tree. Here's the case, plain and simple. Even if the Epstein files drop tomorrow with undeniable evidence, they won't move Trump's base or the broader political balance in America. We're now in a loyalty-first, post-truth era where the instant response to any damaging material is fake, IR, AI, Photoshop, not real. The playbook is familiar. Deny, deflect, then what about? Find a single usable example on the left and flood the zone. Many supporters have been conditioned to see anyone outside their camp as existentially dangerous. In that apocalyptic frame, even horrific wrongdoing by our guy gets minimized as collateral to prevent imagined catastrophe. Let me be blunt here. Imagine if the Epstein files are released tomorrow, and it turns out there are thousands of pictures and videos of Epstein and Trump having sex with children. Now, not saying that's happened. I'm saying, what if that did happen? A lot of Democrats and liberals and people in the media, see, I told you, that's it, case closed. The case is not closed. The first thing you would see right away is Trump would just deny it. Say, oh, it's fake news. Oh, that's AI footage. We all know you can make anyone look like anything. They would instantly create an AI video of Obama or Biden or Kamala Harris doing pedophilic things with Epstein, and it would muddy the waters. That would be the first response. It's simply fake. You would not change the mind of a single Trump supporter, I believe, if that damning of information came out and it had pictures and it had video. The next thing that would happen is Trump supporters would say, well, look how manly he was. And these girls should thank him. This was the best night that ever happened to him. They will try to spin this as a positive thing. Now, imagine the Epstein files are released, and it turns out that 999 pictures and videos show Epstein and Trump with underage girls naked, committing crimes. And there's one video of one person who's not a political player today. Let's say it's Woody Allen. He's not been implicated in this at all, but it's, a 90-year-old Woody Allen who is a Democrat and a liberal. What's the only thing you would see on Fox News Channel, on Breitbart, on the War Room, on all the conservative podcasts? They would say, see, we told you there is a liberal elite running a pedophile ring, and here is the poster boy of pedophilia. It is Woody. Again, I'm making this up hypothetical. It's Woody. They would point to the one example that's provable and ignore the 999 or 999,000 cases of Trump, if that were the case. So I'm here to tell you, facts don't matter to people who already like Trump. If facts mattered, they wouldn't be supporting Trump. They're clearly not bothered by icky, creepy behavior. Let's not forget, Trump is the guy who told us way back in 2016, it's great owning the Miss Teen USA contest. I can walk back in the dressing room while the girls are naked and getting dressed, and I get away with it. This is the guy who said it's great being a celebrity. You can walk up to women and grab their you know what. And his supporters said, fine, we love it. We love you. You're a real man. That's the other thing. Let's say, for example, that footage comes out, pictures come out, and it's Epstein and Trump and a dozen 16, 15-year-old girls. They're all naked. The footage shows illegal acts were committed. What's the spin going to be from the Sean Hannitys and the Breitbarts and the talk radio crowd? Now, the Larry Elders of the world, they're going to say, see, we told you Trump is strong and manly and virile. Look at him. He's with 12 young ladies. Doesn't that make him virile? It's not going to change their mind. I hate to tell you, so many Democrats and people I often admire and respect, liberal pundits, think if they just keep hitting this Epstein file thing, that one of two things will happen. One, it will bring up Trump's negatives. Well, he already has the highest negatives of anyone in the history of politics. Number two, they seem to be under the delusion that it's going to shake away some of the support of existing Republicans. Not going to happen. Trump's support a decade ago was around 40%, sometimes 42%. That's what it is today. Nothing is changing these minds of these people. And here's why. They have been brainwashed into this attitude of, okay, Trump might not be perfect, but any Democrat, even if they are to the right of center, even if they are a mealy-mouthed, finger in the wind, poll-taking, moderate, centrist Democrat, even those people are such radical, extremist, left-wing extremists. Their only goal is to destroy all of America, all of society, and impose pedophile rings everywhere. They've been brainwashed into believing that. And you and I can say, well, that's crazy. That's absurd. Why would they think that? They do. They just do. And it's time for you and me to accept the fact that that's what they believe. So when you do have that belief, all of a sudden, things like the guy you like, maybe 20 years ago, having had one situation where he was a pedophile, all of a sudden, it's not important to you. Doesn't seem relevant. You're like, well, that's like worrying about littering or going 56 miles an hour in a 55 zone compared to our entire society being destroyed by these radical, extremist, far-left Democrats. And we had to realize this at some point. We're not going to change them. Now, Hillary Clinton got a lot of criticism back in 2016 for writing off the Trump supporters, saying half of them are a basket of deplorables, racist, morons. She didn't say morons, but she wrote them off. You remember the quote. And it wasn't a politic thing to say. It wasn't a smart thing to say as a candidate. But what if she were actually correct? What if it is a basket of deplorables, the Trump supporters, and you cannot change them, that there are absolutely no facts whatsoever? And I am of the firm belief you could have documentary evidence, video after video, showing Trump molesting, sexually assaulting 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and younger. Again, I'm not alleging any of this exists. What I'm alleging is that you could show his supporters this footage and certify that it has not been altered in any way, and you wouldn't gain a single vote for the other side. You just wouldn't. They'd be like, you know what? I don't see it. Doesn't mean anything compared to the fact that, Hillary is running a pedophile ring in a pizza shop in Washington, D.C., which many of them believe. They would say, well, it doesn't matter because it's a small crime compared to the Democrats stealing the election in 2020, which didn't happen, but they now believe. So what is the answer? I hate to tell you, the answer is a lot of Democrats have to get off their duffs. Now I sound like Ronald Reagan, who used that word. Get off their posteriors, trying to keep a family-friendly, business-friendly show here, and actually vote. And stop being petty and stop being stupid. And I'm talking to any of the Democrats who voted for Jill Stein in 2016 and brought us Donald Trump in the first place. It's one thing you could say about Republicans and conservatives and MAGA. They're smart. They know that politics is about compromise, the art of the possible, not about the art of getting perfect everything you want. I guarantee you give a shot of sodium pentothal to all the conservative Republican traditional values Christian ministers and said, do you want to support someone who publicly cheats, has sex with porn stars, throws ex-wives in the gutter regularly? Is that your first choice for a presidential nominee? They say, no, that's awful, but he's going to give us the votes we want on the Supreme Court. He's going to ban abortion. So we're going to swallow our litmus test of everything we want. We're going to get most of what we want. Republicans and MAGA are smart at doing that. They really are. Whereas so many Democrats, so many liberals, progressives, Greens, whatever you want to call them, take this attitude of, well, the Democrat isn't perfect. Oh, they took money from a corporation. They're bad. The two parties are both the same, equally. I'm gonna be pure and stay at home and not vote. Or I'm gonna cast my vote for Jill Stein or Ralph Nader. That's why we're in this mess. That's why we're this close to completely ending this experiment in democracy, because of sanctimonious Democrats and liberals and progressives who think they just need to find someone perfect. Oh, if only Bernie Sanders were the nominee. That's why we have Trump. Let's look at some raw facts here. Yes, Trump did win not only the Electoral College in 2024, he won the popular vote by a couple million votes. But let's not forget, there are 81 million Americans who could have voted in 2024 and said, not important enough, not going to bother. Yeah, no, 81 million. The Democrats need to spend their time going after those people, not people who already know that Trump is corrupt, that he lies about everything, that he's brutal, that he's vicious. Those people know who Trump is. They voted for him. They're not going to change their mind. Stop going after them. Let's go after the 81 million people who didn't bother to vote. And I'm sorry to be racial here. Maybe this isn't politically correct, but I'm going to spit it out. There were 13 million Black citizens who could have voted in 2024. No, couldn't be bothered. What is Trump's favorite activity these days? If it's not, bombing a Venezuelan and killing them illegally, it's firing Black people, especially firing Black women, or harassing them. A Black woman who does her job, like Letitia James or Lisa Cook, you're fired. Don't like you. You don't seem like you just don't look like a Trump supporter. Now, I'm not saying all Black people or white people should vote alike. But I mean, how many times do you have to be single? How many times do you have to see people who look just like you and are fired, humiliated, or have the Department of Justice coming after them to imprison them before you say, maybe I don't want this guy to stay in power. And I'm not putting it all on Black people, but Black people alone could have changed the last election easily. 13 million didn't vote. Trump only won by 2 million. You could make the case that, Hispanics and Latinos, similar situation. It's hard to imagine any Hispanic or Latino person in America who doesn't have at least some family, cousin, second cousin, whose lives weren't destroyed by this administration, what ICE is doing. And yet, some sources say as many as a half of Hispanics voted for Trump. What are you thinking? So maybe what the Democrats should do is stop talking about Epstein, maybe spend more money in Spanish media, Spanish social media, just putting a spotlight on Hispanic people whose lives have been ruined by this administration. And as much fun as I had at the No Kings rally last weekend or recently, and other people do, and the Million Man March and all these other marches that always happen after the election, maybe Democrats need to spend even more energy getting out to vote, because there's something fun and sexy about a protest rally. Oh, it's like the 1960s again. Let me get my tie-dye out. It seems fun, romantic. You know what's not romantic? Walking door to door saying, are you registered to vote? The election's Tuesday for the 2026 campaign. We really need your vote to take back the House. And then going back on election day, say, hey, did you vote yet? Do you need a ride to the polls? Not nearly as fun, not as sexy, not as much music, not as many funny costumes on election day. But that is what can rid the country of this Trump menace. Vote. Maybe put some pressure on family members. Now, I'm not telling you if you're an employer, tell your people you have to vote against Trump or they're fired. I'm not telling you to do that. But wow, if you have a family member, if you've got some son who's failed to launch or a child, they're 23, they're living in your basement, they haven't found themselves yet, and they're too lazy to register to vote, why don't you tell them, hey, register to vote or get out of the house? It's time to start applying some pressure to family and friends rather than waiting for this magical Epstein file to be released. I almost think we're at the point where Trump is going to tell his team, find the Epstein file, add my name a whole bunch of places, add pictures of me with Epstein and naked girls, and let's release it to the world, and let's look at the liberals' heads explode. I almost think it's that point because he will see this as the ultimate way of trolling the media, liberals, academia, anyone with decency, anyone who cares about morals, all the people he opposes. I almost think we're at that point where he will release them just to mess with you. So please, if you're a liberal, a progressive, a media pundit, and you keep on harping on this Epstein file, I think you're wasting your time, and ultimately, you may actually be helping Trump. We got to focus on what matters. This next election may be the last election this country ever faces in a meaningful way. We'll still have elections in the future, but they may be elections in the way that Russia has elections, if you know what I mean. 2016 or 2026 may be our last time for a re-election. So let's stop wasting time trying to persuade people who in fact are no longer persuadable and have proven to us they are not persuadable. Let's instead focus on people who've been too lazy to vote or somehow haven't been paying attention or think that their vote doesn't matter. Let's focus on those people and let's get turnouts as big as they are for protest day on election day. I'm TJ Walker. This is Filtered. Thanks so much for being with me today. I do appreciate you spending time with me, and those of you leaving comments as well. Let me share some comments right now that came in. Robert said, God's honest truth, nothing will turn them. That's my conclusion. And I would say it's pretty much based on empirical evidence. Let's see other comments. R3 Con 59, it's all just a movie until Christ comes back. Okay, whatever that means. Robert says cognitive dissonance is like that, though. Other people spreading religious nonsense, which you're welcome to do, but that's not really what this channel is about. A lot of channels where you can talk about that sort of thing. Lifelong Learner writes, if it was going to change their minds, they would believe the women. Well said, Lifelong Learner. There's this kind, let's not forget, there are more than 20 women who have alleged that Donald Trump has either raped them, violated them, sexually harassed them, groped them. 20. Could one of them be exaggerating it or making it up for publicity? It's possible, but 20? So yeah, maybe, as Lifelong Learner points out, maybe we should believe the women from time to time. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow. If you got any value out of this, please like the show, subscribe to it, follow it, leave comments if you're watching this on demand. If you don't like the show, tell me why. If you disagree, tell me why. If you think I got my facts wrong, cite your facts and your sources. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.